afternoon, and welcome to another episode of After Bloom. I'm here today with Shelley Somerville, a recently new transplant to Bloom here, and she has been very active, wonderfully active in the life of Bloom since she started, and she's been a wonderful addition to the Bloom family. Welcome, Shelley, and welcome to After Bloom.
My pleasure. Yeah.
How this works is I'll ask you 3 questions, and we'll learn a little bit about who Shelley Somerville is and what your interests are. So
maybe I'll learn something myself.
Yeah. So let's just start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from, because this is a chance for other Bloom members to know you.
Yeah. Well, I'm a minister myself. I'm ordained in the movement of spiritual inner awareness, Order of Melchizedek, and I've been active as a minister for more than 30 years now. I was born in Scotland. So I grew up Church of Scotland. I then was sent, because of my trans nature, to a boarding school to sort me out. And at that boarding school it was Scottish Episcopal, and then there was Anglican, and then there was various kinds of other churches, including Catholic. So I've kind of sampled the wares of each form of religion, although for me it was always about the spirituality. Yeah. I don't go to church so much for some particular doctrine. What I go for is the experience, and to experience the presence of the Lord, as I do. And I've lived and worked in more than 40 countries, and I came to the desert about 6 years ago to settle in the Palm Springs area.
And what attracted you to the desert?
I had an opportunity to be a caregiver. I've worked in pretty well every industry there is. I used to run a global consulting firm, but these days I live a much simpler life, and I was going to be a caregiver to an elderly gentleman with Parkinson's, advanced Parkinson's disease, in Rancho Mirage, which is how I met the Rev Kev.
Very nice. So that's then where your Bloom journey began.
Yeah, except it was less of a Bloom journey and more as a Friends of Kev journey, because we were both members of something called the Mid-Valley Interfaith Council, which is probably the most progressive interfaith group in the Coachella Valley. And the year I came here, I wanted to participate in the Transgender Day of Remembrance, but there wasn't one.
Yeah.
So I created one, and I partnered with people like the Human Rights Campaign and Equality California and others to create it. And the one pastor who came forward from that group in a really large way to contribute was Rev Kev.
Yeah.
I mean, he really stands up for rights, human rights, and that's a lot of the reason I'm here. I'm glad you said transplant, because I do feel I do feel brand new. I do feel transplanted into a whole new world. I've never been welcomed as well as I've been welcomed at Bloom, and the way
it's pretty amazing.
And not just through Rev Kev.
No, it's through everybody.
For everybody in the congregation. I've never experienced this depth of connection and welcoming, and also important to me because I've been something of a social activist for most of my life, particularly around LGBT rights. And to have a church that really does live the gospel, caring for the least one among us, those who are poor and marginalized.
Yes. And to me, see, I can identify with what you're saying, because I've been an activist all my life. I've been part of MCC. I've been there. I was part of a small break-off from MCC, and while those were all wonderful experiences for me, I think that what they were leading me to was here.
Oh, totally. I mean, so the reason I actually came to the church itself is just last year in November. Up came the Transgender Day of Remembrance again, as it does each year. And I get a phone call, and it's Rev Kev, who I haven't talked to maybe for years. And he lets me, invites me to come and speak, and to read a prayer, and to do things. And I sit there and I go, well, this is interesting. These people are just very loving, very caring, appear to be doing their best to live the gospel. So I kept coming. And I had a big question in my mind, because I'd been going a lot to nearby Catholic churches because the experience of the Eucharist was so intense for me.
Yeah.
And on the first Sunday of each month, there is communion. And so I go to communion, I get the wine, or rather the bread, I dip it in the wine, and I hear inside myself, he's here. The Lord is here. And that was it for me. And I was called. I was called to coordinate the education ministry. And we've done book studies, and we just completed, just this evening, the first event in a meditation circle. We do movies of the month, speakers. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And I love doing it. I love being a part of this church.
Yeah. It's a very powerful place to be, and that's why I do what I do within the church, because you feel not just inspired, but even driven, I would say for myself, to really to be a part of this church. It becomes part of our fiber.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no question in my mind I was called.
Yeah.
And the calling, as always, when I'm called, I was called to be the chair of the global board of of ministers of my church in the previous church I was involved in, and it was the same prayer. It was, look, I only want to be doing this if it's your will, Lord. And if it is, I need your support. You have to support me. And it's been magical. I'm loving every moment. I think I'm getting more out of it than the people who come for the education.
Yeah. Well, and that's wonderful. And, there are times, when I felt like when I'm getting out of this is more than what I'm giving. And what a wonderful feeling that is to have, because it's just so overwhelming at times.
And Bloom, but also it's the other congregations from around the United Church of Christ. I've just come back, as you know, from the annual conference of Southern California and Nevada, and that experience was so, the word profound does not come close.
Yeah.
Very diverse group, led by their congregations. So a tremendous amount of variance, but a series of common values.
Yes.
Living the gospel.
And it's wonderful, I think, to have a sanctuary that is led by the congregation, that is directed by the people that are within that sanctuary, as opposed to just being pastor or minister or elder driven.
Absolutely.
Because it's so much more an inclusive environment when it's that way.
It's us. It's us. You see,
it's
that's
us. It's our communication with God, and we take away the middleman in that, or the middle woman, and we can, and I've always believed that that's how our relationship with God should be. There shouldn't be someone in between. Our relationships with God and Jesus are very, very personal, powerful things.
And like our church says, God is still speaking.
Yes.
Still speaking inside, and I have that experience. It's like, where would I go? It's difficult to talk about a home in this world, because we're all just visiting here in these bodies. But if there is a home in this world for me, it's Bloom.
Yeah. I think there are a great many of us that I don't know that there's one bloomer that doesn't feel that way at this point. That's active in Bloom itself, and it's a wonderful place to be.
It is.
You know, well, Shelley, I want to thank you for your time today. I think a great many of us find you to be a wonderful inspiration as a human being, and I think when we can be that for others, just as a human being, I think we succeed a little in making this world a much better place, because there's too many people that forget how to be just a human being, not a man, not a woman, but just human.
That's exactly. You've just quoted the Gospel of Mary from the Nag Hammadi Gospels. When Mary is saying, he made us human beings. The Lord Jesus Christ, with his teachings, made us humans being neither man, nor woman, nor rich, nor poor.
Yes.
All human beings.
And I will say this, I was at the meditation tonight, and I'll be back next week, and I learned something that I did not know, you know, and I like to think I'm pretty intelligent, but there's so much to learn, and I know that. And the thing that I learned that I'll share with you that I found most fascinating tonight and connected with me was Hugh. And it's since I've come to Bloom, I have learned a great many ways to see God. I see him as Yahweh, I see him as God, I see him as the Lord. I now see God as, and I don't see God as him. I've never seen God as him. I've never seen God as her. God, for me, God.
If it was, he would be too small.
Yeah.
How could he have created all of it?
God is not man nor woman. To me, God is both, and so I avoid referring to God as he or she, but as God. Simply as God, and now I've got
creator of all the universes. Maybe
Hugh.
A point of explanation. Hugh, H-U, it's an anglicized form of the sound of the Sanskrit word for God I am.
And so we take that and we add the man on the end, which is my favorite thing to add on the end because it's so limiting, I find it. But we get human, and so it really shows us where we come from and what spiritual being we are all a part of.
All children of God.
Yes. And so it's a beautiful thing. So if you haven't had the chance to check out Bloom, you really should check us out, because we are, and you know, I can say this with all sincerity, Bloom is just an incredible, spiritual, blessed place to be a part of. So why don't you come down this Sunday and join us at 10 a.m. for Sunday services. And if you have been to Bloom and you love us, we'll see you on Sunday. If you can't be with us on Sunday, well, you know, be with us in spirit. Keep us in your prayers, and we'll keep you in ours. And we will just love everybody and every human as they are, and accept them as they are, as God would do and as Jesus would do. And again, we are very blessed to have this wonderful human being as a part of Bloom. And I think, you know, all of us at Bloom feel the same way about you, Shelley. And you've just been a wonderful addition, and you brought so much to make Bloom grow and have even more light than it already does. So thank you, Shelley.
It's a privilege.
And I love seeing you on Sunday, and it's been wonderful having this conversation with you. keep us in your prayers, and we'll keep you in our prayers. And until next time, have a blessed week and a blessed life.